Okay. Now I want you to take your hand and put it on top of my hand. Okay, just like that. Perfect. Okay, do not let go. Keep your arms stretched out away from your body, and in that position, I want you to walk out that way. And I want you to do the biggest volleyball toss you've ever done in your life.
Straight up ahead.
Straight up.
Just like that.
Straight up.
Unfortunately, you weren't here for this.
Straight up.
Straight up and let go. Yeah, yeah.
Good one.
Hello, this is Kathy Garner with Fresno Wildlife Rehabilitation Service. We handle hawks, owls, falcons, eagles, ducks, egrets, herons, geese, and all wild mammals, such as bobcats, foxes, raccoons, tree squirrels, opossums, and deer. If you have any of those, please feel free to leave your name and all of your phone numbers. Thank you for calling.
The headline reports a dire picture of the world's wildlife population. But thousands of mammals and birds in the San Joaquin Valley and Sierra foothills have been given a new lease on life, thanks to the volunteers of the Fresno Wildlife Rescue and Rehabilitation Service. Here at the group's headquarters in Clovis, the volunteers are celebrating the organization's 40th anniversary by showing birds that have been injured and placed in their care. These creatures, like this vulture that lost part of its wing when it was illegally shot, have conditions that prevent them from being released back to their native environments. Among those showing their birds are students and graduates of CART, the Center for Advanced Research and Technology, a specialized high school in Clovis. The environmental studies class there coordinates with Fresno Wildlife to teach students how to rehabilitate and care for injured animals.
This is Romeo. He's a burrowing owl. My project was to socialize and enrich him, so I created a couple different projects and activities for him to do, and I observed his behavior and decided which one was the best for him. Car rides is actually the best. It was his favorite because we believe it stimulated being able to fly because he cannot fly, and he loves car rides, so that was his favorite.
This is Blinky. She's a northern saw-whet owl. They are found up in our forest. They're pretty small. They're actually the third smallest owl species in the world, so they're not easy to spot out up in the trees, but they are found in our area. It really has changed my life forever. It confirmed what I wanted to do with the rest of my life, and it made me excited for my future.
This is Rain. She is a red-shouldered hawk. Experience is amazing. I never thought I'd ever get to work with birds of prey. I want to do this for the rest of my life. I want to become a zookeeper, work with reptiles and birds of prey.
This is the Eurasian eagle owl. So he's not native here. Someone smuggled him in as eggs. They painted them like Easter eggs, and they brought him in probably to sell or to have as a pet. So there's nothing wrong with him. He just can't be released because of that fact he's not native here.
Have you seen Harry Potter? I'm assuming you've seen Harry Potter. You know Professor Remus? Yeah, his real name is Remus, but I call him Remy because it's easier. If you look really closely, this wing droops a little bit differently than this one. We believe it's what's called the coracoid process. It's in their shoulder area. It's a really thin bone. We've tried to release him. Last year before I got him, we tried to release him with the other barn owls that got released, and instead of flying off, he just ran on the ground and stopped. So he can't be released. I love it. It's honestly changed my life. I don't know exactly what I want to do yet, but I do know I want to work with animals. So.
The organization's latest star is a young bald eagle whose head won't completely turn white until she's 5 years old.
This is her first outing, and she's just spectacular, really. Having her show us her back means she's relaxed. If she thought we were a threat, she would turn around looking at us.
Oh, okay.
So she's very comfortable in this setting. It fell out of a tree and broke the end of its wing off. So it's got 2/3 of a wing on one side. So she can't fly. He never misses.
Yeah, I bet. Of course, Hamilton. Oh,
He did.
so does she have a name?
That's Auburn.
Auburn?
Yeah.
Look at the beak. That bird could tear apart a critter of some size.
While the educational animals act as the organization's ambassadors, nearly 85% of the birds and mammals are rehabilitated and released. Here, Kathy Garner, who has headed Fresno Wildlife since she founded it 40 years ago, is coordinating the release of barn owls. In 1974, Kathy was an active docent with Fresno's Chaffee Zoo, where she and her young daughter were involved with a Fresno Junior Museum. In that year, both organizations decided to cease taking in and caring for orphaned or injured native animals.
At that same point, I was involved with probably 5 or 6 other people that were heavily involved at the zoo, and we became concerned when we heard from the Department of Fish and Game that since there were no active rehabs and no facilities, no licensed rehabbers, that all the animals, whether they were healthy or not, were being euthanized en masse. They were just babies that were totally whole and healthy, and their only problem was that they were orphaned.
Kathy was surprised when her applications for licenses to rehabilitate wildlife were approved, because her educational background is in music and psychology, not zoology.
I asked my husband before I applied, and he said, well, what's involved? And I said, well, I'm not that much, just a few animals a year. And his comment, which he's probably living every day to regret, he says, well, how bad can it be? So he said, sure, go ahead. And now we take in between 400 and 1,200 animals a year. And it's a lot bigger than we had ever expected.
The owls in this facility were found in various locations as newly hatched and rehabilitated to their current teenage stages. They were brought here to acclimate to outdoor conditions and gain strength prior to their release. The owls are extremely good at what they do, which is to maneuver silently throughout the night and catch their prey. It takes good reflexes and quick reaction time just to catch the birds. Covering the owl's eyes helps to calm the bird while volunteers prepare it for release.
We have the only federal banding permit practically left in the valley. So we want to know, because we want to know if they're found, whether we're successful. Some of them have been found 6, 7 years later, 10 years later, so we know that they're making it.
Debbie Eldred is a dedicated volunteer who rehabilitates many different species of wildlife, including this fully grown pygmy owl that was injured when it flew into a window pane. But here, she is venturing into the Sierra foothills to release a different animal. Accompanied by volunteer Ruth Sharnon and friend Dana Huckenstein, Debbie is about to set free 3 gray foxes she rehabilitated after the animals were turned over to Fresno Wildlife by the Central California SPCA. The SPCA calls on Fresno Wildlife when fox kits have been brought to them, perhaps by farmers who discover the fox kits while disking their fields, or construction workers laying new foundations who inadvertently destroy the dens.
Okay, honey, let's go.
Woohoo! Atta girl!
Isn't that neat?
Though Fresno Wildlife has a small office in Clovis, the work of the organization is done by volunteer members in their homes. Terry Williams is a longtime volunteer whose bathtub is often home to a variety of creatures, including these black-crowned night herons. These hatchlings were given to Terry 3 months ago when their nests, or rookery, were destroyed when trees were illegally cut. The young birds were taken to the Clovis Animal Shelter, which notified Fresno Wildlife. To mimic their upcoming wilderness diet, Terry must feed fish and mice to the orphans 3 times a day. From the bathtub, these herons are placed in Terry's backyard, where they will grow stronger prior to their release. When they're ready, Terry drives them to a remote area near the San Joaquin River. The release comes at night because these herons are nocturnal birds. Terry is accompanied by her son Chris as they introduce the herons to their new home. Terry's backyard is also a home for orphaned and injured bobcats that were rescued from local foothill areas. Because they are bottle-raised, these cats may appear to be semi-tame, but by the time they are released, they will be completely wild. Fresno Wildlife never releases animals that could potentially be dangerous to humans. Terry has 35 years of experience with Fresno Wildlife and is trained and permitted to care for and release animals. When one of the bobcats is ready to be freed, Terry and other organization members journey to a remote private property in the Sierra foothills to release him. This release, however, would not be easy. The bobcat refuses to leave its cage, so Terry attempts to coax him out. When that fails, she tries another method. Dave takes a more forceful approach. Surprising everyone, the cat makes a U-turn and heads off through the grazing cattle. Momentarily, it's not seen, but Terry spots it crossing a pond. Though the cattle and the cat are startled, neither poses a danger to each other. The cat takes refuge in an oak tree, and Terry leaves, satisfied this bobcat has found a new home. The largest mammal rehabilitated by Fresno Wildlife is the black-tailed deer, and these are ready to be released. But before that can happen, they must be sedated so the volunteers can transport them safely to the Sierra foothills. The deer seem used to Carol McLaughlin, since she and her family have rehabilitated them, but the task is still challenging. Once the medication takes effect, the deer are ready to be loaded into the vans. Here, Terry Williams teaches CART students how to treat a deer's eyes for the journey.
It keeps their eyes from drying out. It just protects them. When they're asleep, they don't blink and tear normally.
Now they're ready to go. Well, almost ready. Under the canopy of an oak forest, the deer are unloaded and then injected with another medication to counter their sedation. After a little prodding, they're on their own, ready to experience their new home. It's a mixed bag of emotions for those who have rehabilitated the animals.
It's a little bit sad. It's a little bit sad. I'm very happy that that they're wandering off and doing what deer need to do, but realizing that I won't be going out to feed them and seeing them is sad. And it's kind of nice to get a relief from them too. I mean, at the same time. So.
Back at Fresno Wildlife's 40th anniversary celebration, Torrin Taylor is anticipating the release of 3 great horned owls she has raised.
I'm really excited. They all grew up really healthy, and luckily they're all in the same mew, so they'll all be released at once. But it's also kind of sad because they're babies. I got to raise them from babies, and the third one especially, I raised him from a baby, so it'll be happy and sad.
Torrin acquired the owls after nests fell out of trees that had been cut down. Deer like these, however, are oftentimes acquired when, as fawns, they are mistaken as being abandoned. Those who believe they are rescuing the fawns don't realize that does leave their fawns alone during the day while they hunt for food. The Central California SPCA, U.S. Fish and Wildlife, California Department of Fish and Wildlife, and other agencies and individuals call Fresno Wildlife when they need the organization's help. Kathy remembers one of those calls.
We got a call from the highway patrolman once, and he called me up and he said, I think you need to meet me. And I said, where are you? And he gave me the street, and I said, and why am I meeting you? And he said, because someone just ran their car into a palm tree and 6 baby owls fell out, and they're sitting on the side of the road, and you need to come get them. He says, and I'm busy sighting the person right now. So we went and we picked up the baby barn owls and off we went. But, you just never know.
The organization also makes house calls. Family and friends have gathered at the Dobson home near Oakhurst to witness the release of this pygmy owl.
Okay.
The owl was discovered a month earlier with an injured eye and wing by the family dog and rescued by Jamie Dobson, who called Fresno Wildlife. Now, Kathy Garner and Terry Williams have returned with the healed owl to release it where it was found. Hannah Scott, Cedar Dobson, and Willow Dobson give their final inspection before the bird is set free. Pygmy owls are not the smallest creatures under Fresno Wildlife's care. This distinction belongs to hummingbirds, which are oftentimes turned over to the organization as hatchlings that have fallen from their nests. The remarkable birds are cared for in this backyard aviary by Eileen Sutterfeld, who has been a volunteer for 25 years. Feeding the adults, Eileen says, is the easy part. When the birds are hatchlings, they require feeding every 15 minutes from sun up to sundown.
So that means when you go to the grocery store, they go to the grocery store. You go to a doctor's appointment, they go to the doctor. You go to the dentist, they go to the dentist. If you leave the old stuff up, they tend to get fungal infections in their mouth. So Anyway, hummingbird rescue.
Immediately prior to their release, the birds are housed in this large section of the aviary that mimics their upcoming natural surroundings. Prior to that, they are kept in the smaller cages where the bird's strength and diet can be more easily monitored. Many of the released birds return to Eileen's backyard for nourishment. Having the highest metabolic rate of any living thing, the bird's wings are a blur, even when the speed is slowed 10 times, as seen here. Wildlife education is a central theme of the organization. Here, members are at a Kids' Day event at Duncan Ceramics to share their love of animals with the younger generation.
Woo! 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 Woo!
At this event on the Fresno Art Hop Circuit, Fresno Wildlife members are not only showing their animals, but also informing the attendees about the organization. Fresno Wildlife accepts memberships and support from anyone who agrees with the group's mission, even if they don't directly care for an animal. Wildlife volunteers also make annual appearances at the Clovis Antique Fair, where passerbys find themselves captivated by the animals. Diane Ganner is a volunteer who credits Fresno Wildlife with changing her life.
Well, when I started here, I was going to school at Reedley College, and I didn't know anything about birds of prey, and I'm dyslexic, and I was reading below second grade level. I was afraid to talk to people. They put a bird in my hand, and that changed my life tremendously.
Now a Forest Service naturalist and wildlife volunteer, she speaks to thousands.
And I wouldn't have been able to do this if it wasn't for this organization.
One of the main attractions at this and many other Fresno wildlife events is Igor, a raven under Jennifer Brower's care. Igor, you see, is a jailbird.
Igor came to us about 7 years ago by way of the Clovis Police Department. His previous owner, who had him illegally, taught him how to steal mail out of mailboxes. He lived in a big 2-story house over here, and he had an upstairs window, so he would pull it down, and he would send out Igor, and Igor would go to the mailboxes, open them up, take the mail out, and fly it back to him, and he'd go through and get the checks. So he's a federal offender. So now he's doing community service.
Igor attracts a lot of attention at his permanent residence as well. Because he was not raised in his natural environment, he would not survive if released. So his home is behind Jennifer's home. These barn owls, however, also living behind Jennifer's home, are ready to be released. Cub Scouts, their parents, and friends have gathered to learn about the owls and assist in setting them free. One by one, the owls find their freedom, as Kathy helps the next generation of wildlife volunteers propel them into the air.
Ready? Okay, on 3, we're going to give it a big boost, okay? Ready? 1, 2, 3. Good job.
Fresno Wildlife has witnessed thousands of success stories like this in its 40 years. But there's another story yet to be written. Through the foresight and generosity of the city of Clovis, an undeveloped piece of property has been set aside to help Fresno Wildlife construct a new home, a nature education and wildlife rehabilitation center. One day, it could become a major attraction in the San Joaquin Valley. The facility would be patterned after the Lindsay Wildlife Hospital, an adjacent museum in Walnut Creek, California. Here, residents bring in injured and orphaned wild animals for rehabilitation.
Hi.
How are you today?
I'm good.
Do you have an injured animal there?
Yeah, we found this in our backyard this morning.
Okay. What I'd like to do, if it's okay with you, is take it to the back, find out what it is, and then I'll come back and get some information from you for our computer, okay?
Okay.
I'll be right back.
The facility has areas for nearly every type of animal and situation, along with a staff who know what treatment will be required for the various levels of care. Volunteers take care of the daily feeding, while veterinarians oversee the medical needs. In the valley are veterinarians like Dr. Kristen Fosna-Wallert, who first encountered wildlife as a junior volunteer assistant with Fresno Wildlife Rehabilitation. The animals that cannot be released will find a home in the museum, like the Walnut Creek facility, which annually attracts and educates thousands of visitors curious about wildlife. The Clovis Center, like this one, will be a magnet for school groups from throughout the area to provide a variety of educational opportunities. It will also host classes and camps for children, teens, and adults seeking more in-depth knowledge of their natural world.
It's getting harder and harder for schools to get money for field trips. And this would be very close. They wouldn't have to go to the coast. They wouldn't have to go to San Francisco or LA. And being that it's right here in the Central Valley, we thought it would be a tremendous asset, and so did the city of Clovis. It's a dream of all of our volunteers. It would be so exciting. I go to sleep at night and I see it in my dream. I see busy people, busy kids going from one activity to another, learning about the emergency work that we are going to have to do on an animal, maybe long-term physical therapy on an animal, kids that are at risk that haven't found a niche, that never really connected to humans, now connect to an animal. We've had it happen time and time again, especially with at-risk children. We've wanted this for the longest time, and I think Clovis would just benefit, and so would the Valley. We need it here. We deserve it here. The kids in the Valley growing up here deserve it.
The campaign to build this world-class facility is underway. Please join Fresno Wildlife to help make this dream a reality. Do it for them, and for yourself and your children as well.